Let's start with this comment from Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren, who's a Democrat from California. She reported something extremely alarming. A Capitol Police official, on the 6th of January radioed other units the following on the morning of the 6th of January. I hope you're sitting down when you hear this. This is what the Capitol Police official radioed other police officers. Attention all units on the field. We're not looking for any pro-Trump in the crowd. Again, we're not looking for any pro-Trump in the crowd. We're only looking for any anti-pro-Trump who want to start a fight. Again, we're only looking for any anti-pro-Trump who want to start a fight. Wow. Let's roll the tape and hear from Congresswoman Lofgren.
Well, and it underscores what, again, the perception of the threat was going to be that day from people who were tasked with protecting the Capitol. This description of the radio transmission came up in a hearing with the Capitol Police's Inspector General. This was Representative Zoe Lofgren, who chairs one of the committees that oversees Capitol Police, describing a radio transmission that she's apparently been able to review through the course of her investigation into what happened on January 6th. So here's the actual quote that she read aloud during that hearing. Attention all units on the field. We're not looking for any pro-Trump in the crowd. We're only looking for any anti-pro-Trump who want to start a fight. And the reason that Representative Lofgren thinks this is such an important moment is because she maintains that Capitol Police had ample evidence that there could be violence from people in the crowd who were supportive of President Trump. This is something they've admitted to, Brianna, in hearings. They knew there was a chance for white supremacists who were armed, intending to cause violence, would be there that day. And yet they were still focused on what they perceived the threat could possibly be, which was between clashes of anti-Trump people and pro-Trump people.
Now, one person who's not a fan of former President Trump is the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Let's take a look at this interesting quote from House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, where she takes a shot at the Trump administration and says, "I love Puerto Rico. I feel embarrassed by how President Trump withheld resources from them after natural disasters." Let's roll the tape and hear from the House Speaker.
I love Puerto Rico. I felt embarrassed by how President Trump withheld resources for them after natural disasters and the rest.
Yeah, she doesn't hold anything back. In fact, House Speaker Pelosi is not done yet. When she was asked to comment on the filibuster, this is what she said. She said, Mitch McConnell is still the problem. And she said that when she was asked to comment on whether the Senate should remove the filibuster. Basically saying the filibuster is not the problem, Mitch McConnell is the problem. Let's roll the tape and hear from House Speaker Pelosi.
You realize that Mitch McConnell is still the problem. It's not as if it was Mitch McConnell, now it's somebody else. No, Mitch McConnell is still the problem. And I don't get involved in any discussion on Senate rules. You know that. And I don't welcome any discussion from them on House rules. However, I do think we have discussion on issues and how the needs of the American people are met.
And speaking of the filibuster, here's a quote from Congresswoman Cori Bush, who's a Democrat from Missouri. She wants an end to the filibuster. She said, people who suffer the most from the racist filibuster look like me. Let's roll the tape and check out what Congresswoman Bush had to say.
I want my colleagues to know why it was important for me to lead in this effort. Because the people who suffer the most from the racist filibuster, they don't look like most of the senators. They look like me. There aren't any black women in the Senate. Not to mention that there are not nearly enough women of color in the Senate. Let's be real. There are not nearly enough women of color in the United States Senate. So, since our senators will not feel the urgency of all that is at stake in the same way that I do, in the same way that black women do, in the same way that so many women of color do, I'm stepping up.
Now let's hear the Republican response. The Republican senator from South Carolina, Lindsey Graham, chimed in on this and he said, and I quote, "There's nothing racist about keeping the filibuster." Let's roll the tape and check out the response from Lindsey Graham. Let's watch.
There's nothing racist about keeping the filibuster. And here's the question. If it's a tool of racism, why did they use it so much when they were in the minority? Why did they use it to stop Tim Scott's ability to have a discussion about police reform? This is hypocrisy, and it's not going to work.
Now, let's shift gears from one Republican to another Republican. But before I go to this other Republican, I have to tell you what he was talking about. He was talking about the rapper and songwriter Cardi B's Grammy performance. Yes, a Republican speaking in Congress about Cardi B's Grammy performance and how it could be bad for the moral fabric of our country. By the way, Cardi B actually responded to this, but first let's check out comments from Congressman Glenn Grotman, who's a Republican from Wisconsin. In this segment, believe it or not, he's complaining about Cardi B's Grammy performance and the moral decline of America on the floor of the House in the past 24 hours. This is what our elected representatives are doing while we have bigger problems, while we have major problems facing our country. Let's roll the tape and check out what the congressman said.
I have received complaints in my office, and rightfully so, about Cardi B and the Grammys. They wonder why we are paying the FCC if they feel that this should be in living rooms across the nation. I realize that Kamala Harris has used her fame to promote this performer, but I assure the FCC that millions of Americans would view her performance as inconsistent with basic decency. Wake up, FCC, and begin to do your job. The moral decline of America is partly due to your utter complacency.
And folks, Cardi B did not hold back. I'm going to show you the response from Cardi B on your screen right now. So clearly, Cardi B is not the kind of person to stay silent. And she said, "This gets me so mad, you don't even know." And you can read the rest of her tweet on your screen right now. As you see her tweet, I want you to let me know in the comment section below whether you agree with the congressman, whether you agree with Wisconsin's Congressman Glenn Grotman, or whether you sympathize with what Cardi B is saying. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Okay, let's shift gears from Cardi B to another Republican congressman. This is Congressman James Comer, who's a Republican from Kentucky, and he was talking about DC statehood, which, by the way, has passed the House. At the time I'm recording this video, it's probably going to be dead on arrival in the United States Senate. So I do think the whole DC statehood thing is not going to go anywhere. But this is what Congressman James Comer, the Republican from Kentucky, said about DC statehood. He said DC statehood is about pushing a radical agenda championed by the Squad to reshape America into the socialist utopia they always talk about. I'm not exactly sure of the connection between what the Squad wants and DC statehood. I'm pretty sure that the congressman knows what he's talking about. I'll let you be the judge. Let's roll the tape and hear the congressman, the Republican from Kentucky, which, by the way, is the home state of the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. Let's roll the tape and hear from Congressman Comer.
It's about Democrats adding 2 new progressive U.S. senators to push a radical agenda championed by the Squad to reshape America into the socialist utopia they always talk about.
From one unusual Republican congressman's comments to another highly unusual Republican senator's comments, the highly ambitious Republican Senator Ted Cruz from Texas said this when he was talking about court packing, which is something that the Republicans are very concerned about. He said, I quote, "You didn't see Republicans when we had control of the Senate to try and rig the game. You didn't see us try to pack the court." Well, the Republicans had a whole bunch of judges, all Republicans, essentially in offices all over the country. So I think that Ted Cruz thinks that we don't watch the news. But let's roll the tape and hear from the one and only Ted Cruz.
You didn't see Republicans, when we had control of the Senate, try to rig the game. You didn't see us try to pack the court.
Now, I'm going to get to something really important, so make sure you watch this video all the way through to the end. But let's shift gears from the DC comedy hour, the filibuster warfare, the judicial back and forth and all the craziness. Now, let's shift gears to something super important, an important comment from Greta Thunberg, who's a climate activist who's known internationally. And boy, oh boy, this is one impressive lady. She said, "How long do you think you can continue to ignore the climate crisis without being held accountable?" Let's roll the tape and hear from Greta Thunberg.
How long do you honestly believe that people in power like you will get away with it? How long do you think you can continue to ignore the climate crisis, the global aspect of equity and historic emissions without being held accountable? You get away with it now, but sooner or later, people are going to realize what you have been doing all this time.
So the one person in the United States who's responsible for climate change is the US climate envoy, John Kerry. Now here's a very interesting segment. I consider it, chit chat between two old guys, but two important guys. So the US climate envoy, John Kerry, said, "Mr. President, we very much appreciate being here to which President Biden said, "We wouldn't be here without you, so thank you." I think President Biden was trying to be polite. And then John Kerry says, "Well, you called the summit." So folks, let's check out two old guys chit-chatting about climate change. Let's watch.
Mr. President, we very much appreciate you being here, part of it.
Thank you, John, and we wouldn't be here, quite frankly, sponsoring this without you, so thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. Well, you called the summit.
Now, before you go, I have a quick favor. Please click the like button. Please subscribe. Please enable notifications so you get instant alerts from our channel going forward. That would mean a lot to me. I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.